So, I grew up in this church, in First Southern Baptist Church. I was going here 9 months before I was born, and I pretty much came to church anytime the doors were open. I did not have a drug problem, meaning they didn't. No, let's not do that one. They didn't drag me to church. I came of my own will and volition, but um, so we were here when the doors were open. Uh, when I was young, had to be school age, but came to a vacation Bible school. And yeah, I've always felt like I liked having knowledge, I like knowing things. And they said, hey, does anybody want to stay behind after the little church service that they had and hear more about God? Well, I wanted to know more about God, so so I raised my hand, and our pastor at the time, who was brother Don Moore, talked to me along with a couple other people, and it really didn't feel like um, my answers. He said, "Say this prayer after me," and I said the words that he said, but it was more like I was only here for the knowledge. I wasn't here for like to make a decision of any kind. I didn't understand any of that being so young. But flash forward several years later, my mom was concerned about that because I had never really made a decision, and she was aware of that. So she had talked to our interim youth minister, which was Scott Mays at the time, and he called me to the office and said, "Hey, your mom's concerned about where you are spiritually and such," and so we discussed it. And of course, then I was in the youth group, so I was a bit older and understood my condition as being lost, and not quite knowing where to go from there. And so he led me to Christ in his office, and so that was fun times. So I met my wife here at First Southern Baptist. She started coming with my now sister-in-law, Trinity Goodman, and so their youth group had deteriorated a bit, and so they started coming here. So my wife, Sandra, came along with Trinity to different things. Since she was dating my brother, they came along to a lot of family functions of ours, and Sandy came along with them, and so we got acquainted that way. And after I convinced her that she liked me, we started dating and got married. That was 20 years ago, a little bit more than that now. And so we have adopted, fostered and adopted 3 children, and we have 1 dog that's also adopted. God has blessed us very much. We couldn't have children naturally, but God has made provisions, and so He allowed us to foster. We had fostered 1 child who had just turned 2, and we had him for about a year. And while we had him, we got a sibling group of who was not quite 2 and not quite 3. So we went from 0 children to 3 under 3 in 3 months. So that was an interesting time as well, but kept me on my toes for sure, and a little thinner at that time. but yeah, and they've been here the entire time that we've had them, and they've plugged in really well with now. Joey's in the youth group, and Zahar's just about there, and Olivia's still doing the children's church things, and so yeah. And then our dog doesn't get to come to church very often, so sorry, Obi. My favorite memory is probably being in the youth group at in. I'm wanting to say it was probably 95, 96, 94, somewhere in there. We went on a youth a mission trip to Flagstaff, Arizona. And so we saw Grand Canyon and other things that while we were there, we took the buses that we had at the time cross country to over there, and it was really good. Of course, we did a vacation Bible school for the kids at that church and that surrounding community, and did a sports camp in the evening, and so it was really, really good time. But that's probably one of my favorite memories, just because of the enormity of the outing and such. But yeah, that was a long time ago. But goals for the church, I would like for anybody that came through the doors that we would be able to minister to them. No matter what nationality comes through the door, no matter what spiritual condition comes through the door, we would have people in place that could minister to their lives. And having that ready and available, like the scriptures say, be ready in season and out of season. That would be my goal for us. Oh man, you're asking me to pick one of my favorite kids. No, my favorite Bible story would probably have to be the story of the spies that went in to Jericho, and the whole story of Jericho, really. But Rahab allowing the spies to hide in her apartment, basically, that was in the wall, and the redemption sort of story with that, which so they remembered the kind act that she had done, and I think it's a little funny that they still refer to her as a harlot, but but even after she saved, all of the whole story was saved by her and her family and whatnot. But that whole thing of God showing that He can take somebody who the world would say is nothing, and really use them. So. Another one, you're trying to pick my favorite kids. No, that one's harder, because there's so many verses that just speak to your heart, and you really try to live by. And this is going to be cliche, I'm sorry, but John 3:16 is the first verse that you learn when you're a little bitty kid in vacation Bible school, and but it really is the basis upon every Christian out there. And so God so loved the world that He gave, and if we accept, we can have that gift. So. Well, the Lord has helped me grow in a bunch of different ways. I had, when I grew up, we didn't have ADHD and all the different things that were out there. They were out there. I'm sure they were there, just not diagnosed as such as we do now. And I was one of those, kids like my son. And if a wall would look at me, I would talk to the wall. But and that's a good thing. God can use anything, and He uses that. When I talk to people about Christ and about my faith, but God has helped me to realize you don't need to talk to everybody. There's safety situations and different things like that God has kind of expanded my understanding of who to talk to, and tact is, I guess, the good word for that. So, that's the main thing that I think that God has kind of helped me with, is learning when to joke around, when not to joke around, that kind of thing. The Bible is a serious and solemn thing, but we can have fun with it too. In one form or another, yes. Like I said, in I had not been a Christian my whole life. Obviously, you come to a time where you make that decision, and so. But I grew up in the church, and so every time I was here, I was hearing the Word of God and hearing good Christian, seeing good Christian examples and that kind of thing. So God has always been there, and I'm sure He is with most people. God is always there, but whether we can see it or not is the thing. But yeah, so I've been here for 20 years, and no, I don't. And so God is definitely at work in my life. So. That's another hard one. So I have a whole lot of songs that I enjoy, and I'm pretty eclectic with my music styles. I can get into operas and and everything in between, contemporary Christian songs and whatnot. I would have to say I'm more traditional hymn kind of guy, so I like the Old Rugged Cross is probably one of my favorite hymns. So that would be what I would say, but I like just about everything. Go to church. um, you know, eh, being involved in the church is, you're expecting somebody like me to say go to church, but go to church. It's really that as a believer, you will get so much more out of your life if you have other support people around you. If you're coming through a hard time, there's people there that have been through it. If you're coming through a high time, there's people that have been through that, and they can rejoice with you. If you're a non-believer, go to church. You'll hear the gospel, and that's the good news. That's really what it is. The news of hope. So go to church.